In a world overflowing with distractions, we seek meaning. How do we transform ambition into something deeper, into true fulfillment? I'm Sam Pepin, CEO of Course Educa, and I've spent years helping businesses succeed by connecting their goals to something bigger. On the Meaningful Podcast, we explore not just how to win in business, but how to grow as individuals. Through conversation with thought leaders, innovators, and everyday heroes, we uncover the stories that drive us towards something greater. Whether you're striving for success, seeking purpose, or just looking for the next steps in your journey, this podcast is your guide to navigating the intersection of ambition, growth, and meaning. So please join me and our incredible guests as we redefine what's possible in both business and life. Enjoy. Believe you can, and you're halfway there. Welcome to the Meaningful Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Pepin, and today we're diving into 3 transformative themes: harnessing confidence to overcome fear, the power of presence in authentic leaderships, and inspiring growth through self-acceptance. Our guest today is Vanessa Raymond, an exceptional mentor, public speaker, and COO of Achieve System. Vanessa's stories of turning fear into confidence and presence into empowerment highlights the incredible potential of self-belief and determination. From a career as a global performer to her leadership roles, Vanessa amplifies how embracing one's true selves can create meaningful connections and lasting impact. If you enjoyed this discussion, please let the world know with a like, small review, or even a quick share. Your support helps more people find meaningful content just like this. Let's begin. Miss Vanessa Raymond, welcome on the Meaningful Podcast. How are you doing?
I am great, Sam. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. Well, it's lovely seeing you here, and we had a chance to meet in person a few times, and always admire what yourself and your organizations are up to. So, to kick us off, tell us more about Achieve System Pro.
Yes, absolutely. I'm always excited to share. Sam, we are very passionate about helping entrepreneurs and business owners up-level their businesses, no matter where they are, whether you're just starting out, trying to figure out the lay of the land, or whether you're trying to break through that 7 or 8-figure ceiling. We have really spent a lot of years, many, many years, gathering resources and opportunities for entrepreneurs to be able to take their businesses to the next level.
Yes. It's so special because I had a chance to attend some basically Achieve Biz explosions and all the conference that you guys are doing. When you're thinking about what it means to create opportunities for growth, can you a little bit explore some of the values that basically perhaps consists the passion and perhaps the purpose as well of this company?
Yes. Well, I can probably share a personal story to kind of convey this. When I met Robert, who is the CEO and founder of Achieve, I met him back in 2008. I went to an Achieve Systems conference in Las Vegas, which is where he had his conferences back then, back in the day, aging myself. But, I sat down with him and he had done some research. At the time, I had a fitness business and I needed help to grow my business. As most entrepreneurs, service-based professionals, we're really good at what we do in our craft, but no one has ever taught us how to build and grow a successful business, how to gain clients, how to fill that Rolodex, how to do the things that gets us moving forward in our businesses. So I sat down with Robert, and actually one of the things, and this was also because of the kind of business that I was in back then, one of the first things he suggested to me was, why don't we create a certification program, an education program around your expertise? And I remember sitting there and looking at him going, really, I can do that? I don't think I'm an expert yet at that. And he looked at me and he said, everybody can become an expert. You become the expert through doing the work. And that was such a huge moment for me. And I did. I went on to create that certification program, which turned into a very successful kettlebell certification company, which I then 3 years ago was able to sell at a great profit. And this is just an example of the possibilities that when we don't have the mentor or the support, we might not even think of or see those possibilities. But then when you have someone who has the know-how, who's been there and done that, and they can guide you and show you how to reach those possibilities, anything is possible. And that is the essence of Achieve, is that we want to look at an entrepreneur, sit down with them, look at their expertise, and see how we can help them become more visible, add revenue streams to their businesses, because that is a big part of what Achieve does. That is what our education division does. And that's what that certification program was for me. It was a huge new revenue stream in my training and coaching business. So to answer your question, that's kind of the long answer, but to answer your question, our heart and soul is in really looking at each person and their expertise and how we can help them expand and grow that into something larger than they might have ever imagined.
Beautiful. And I want to dive deeper into this because we talk very often about networking for success in the business world and just the true heart of building authentic connections. But in your case, actually attending one of Robert's conference, actually you found love through that. You found perhaps the love of your life. And I was wondering if you bring yourself back at that time, and obviously you're a lovely woman, and I'm sure you have plenty of opportunities when you're thinking of what it means to finding a loved ones professionally. How hardest of a task it is to actually balance kind of like the professional setting and then the personal relationship that might emerge out of that connection.
Yes, Sam. So for those of you listeners who are listening and don't know this, I ended up marrying Robert, the CEO and owner of Achieve. And that's what Sam is referring to here. I think in all of our lives, whether we're actually working with our spouses or not, there's always there's always the need to have to find that balance. And I always say to my clients that I work with and coach, balance is an interesting word because life goes through its ebbs and flows. And sometimes as an entrepreneur, balance isn't always realistic because especially when we're in the middle of a project or we're going into a conference or we're doing something big, that is where our focus needs to be. I think it's about harmony and understanding your significant other and also being able to support them no matter what. And I feel like this is the balance, quote unquote balance, that Robert and I have been able to establish. Also, very important to create boundaries within, okay, so here is the personal time and here is the business time. Of course, they're going to, flow because if you're working together as closely as Rob and I do, business is always just part of our life and our social everything that we do revolves around our business, but we do certain things in our lives, like funny, giving you a little giggle. We bowl on Thursday nights. And I always say, I love going to bowling, not for bowling, bowling's fun, but that's the one time Rob and I do something together on this league that has nothing to do with our business. So there we separate ourselves from it and we just have fun. But we also have created, as you know, Sam, because you're part of our business community here now, the community that we've created have so much become part of our lives. And I know it sounds like a cliche, but some of our best friends are now part of our community, people that we've come to know, that we socialize with, that we hang out with. So they have become like family. We invite them to our Thanksgiving dinners and to our Christmas parties. And so, you just got to find how to really support each other fully, but also make sure the boundaries are there so you understand what is personal time and what is business time.
A very famous quote is your network is your net worth, obviously, Mr. Porter Gale. And it's such a powerful thought because I absolutely adore what you just said, which is this idea of we're building a business, and through that business, we're bringing a community together, which, yes, that's a revenue stream. Yes, that's how obviously we make a living and push our passion forward. But there's also the personal connection aspect of it, the meaningfulness in authentic, basically, relationships. When you're thinking about, if you could share a few practical tips, because you're a master networker, obviously, and I saw you on display many times, so I've been able to experience it myself. What are some very quick practical tips that any entrepreneur can leverage in order to network better?
Great question, Sam. I feel like the word networking has kind of become almost like a dirty word in business, because we have an idea of what networking is because of what we've experienced. And I know that a lot of us have had the experience of going to a typical networking event and feeling like you're just there to be pitched to, right? And so we have really worked hard in our community and in Achieve to create a culture of understanding, collaborations, power partnerships, and not, honestly, as you know, and we always say, networking should be about relationship building. So it's not about only, hey, what do you do? Here's what I do. How can, you want to buy my thing? Can I buy your thing? The biggest tip I can give to people is really be inquiring and be interested in the people that you are with. One of the things people love is to talk about themselves. Because why? Because they are the experts on themselves. They understand themselves. They know themselves. And who are the people that you actually remember when you leave an event? The people that you actually remember are those who asked you the most questions, who wanted to know more about you, not just about your business, but where are you from? Do you have kids? What's your hobbies? What do you like to do outside of work? So have meaningful conversations. Don't just let it end with, who are you? What do you do? Right? One of the things I do, and this is a little bit of a pattern interrupt, is instead of saying, what do you do? I'll say to people, so what's your thing? Right? Hey, Sam, so what's your thing? And that leaves it open to your interpretation of what it is you want to share with me, whether it is your business or a hobby or your greatest passion in life. So I'm not saying, hey, Sam, what's your business? I'm saying, hey, Sam, what are you passionate about? What's your thing? Right? So find a way for people to feel like your question is about them, not just their business.
Yes, and talking about your thing, that's a perfect segue to what I was about to perhaps dive into. One of your many things, perhaps, is show up and stand out. You just mentioned a couple of tips, and some of the people that you remember, which are definitely the one that was not directly pitching you in that second three of the interaction. That's for sure. Why is that so relevant to the modern world? This idea of standing out, of being authentic, of perhaps, again, being unique in many ways. Why do you think we have so much importance in those key topics?
Sam, being successful in business is about being magnetic. The world is so saturated right now with entrepreneurs, people who are creating opportunities for themselves. And I love that. I think it is amazing that people are doing that. However, there's a lot of competition in the world. And again, we're prosperity minded. We don't like to think of anything as competition. We all have our own way of doing what we do. No matter whether you do exactly the same thing as the person standing right next to you, your philosophies around it, your methods around it. And I often talk about your energy. I always say, think of your energy as a radio frequency, right? when you go and you listen to a radio station or podcast or you're streaming, whatever it is you're doing, you know what you're looking for, right? So you're going to search for that thing. I feel like our energy is the same way. The energy that you project is going to determine who you attract. And so when it comes to standing out as an entrepreneur or in the marketplace, however you want to put that, it's about what is your frequency? Who is it that you want to attract? And are you being intentional about that? Because how often do you hear, especially in the entrepreneurial space, well, I want to attract higher level clients, or the people I'm attracting are not willing to invest. What's happening, right? I hear that all the time. But then you got to turn around and you got to look in the mirror and you got to say, why am I attracting that audience? How am I representing myself? And just like you said, how am I showing up and standing out, which is my thing, right? And standing out is not about being an extrovert or wearing the shiniest jacket, or it's about what is the uniqueness about it? What is it that makes you different from the person that stands next to you? How can you own that, stand in your power, and then use that to attract the right kind of people? The kind of people, I'm saying the right kind of people, there's no right or wrong kind of people, but the kind of people that you would like to attract. Do you have a clear vision of what they look like? And are you representing yourself in a way with an energy and an authenticity that's going to attract that type of person?
Yes. And that's so important. And I refer to this quote very often because it's one of my favorite of all time. But Jim Rohn, I think, said it best, which is, if you want to have more than what you have, you must become more than who you are. And this understanding that through your own lens of who you are, that will also refer to how you see the world unfold, and your not only your opinion, but how you surround yourself, the people you surround yourself with. And this is so key. And what I'd love to mention as well for some people that are less familiar with you is you had an extensive, very, very extensive actually experience as a performer as well prior to being an entrepreneur. And when you're thinking about you spent a little above 2 decades actually as a performer yourself. Tell us more about some of your experience within that lens, and perhaps how that advised also the person you became in order to be as successful as you are in business.
Absolutely, Sam. I feel like the person that I am, I attribute and accredit to growing up partly as a performer, right? I danced since I was 3 years old. I started ballet, and my whole life I was so passionate about the craft of dance, which really requires an immense amount of dedication and discipline. And this is one of the things I love to share about being successful. As you just mentioned, I had a very successful career. Yes, I mean, I wasn't on the front page of the New York Times, or I wasn't on Broadway, but I performed all over the world, and I always had work, which in the performance industry is a challenge, right? You know how many performers are out there who part-time. I never had another part-time job. I could always support myself performing. And I always say to people, and this is what really feeds right into entrepreneurship, business ownership, doesn't matter, even if you're an employee. If you have the level of dedication and discipline that it requires to be successful, your skill is secondary. What I mean by that is I was never an exceptional now, I was a singer, a dancer, and an actress. I always talk about dancing because dancing was my number one. In the performance industry, we always say, what are you? A singer, dancer, actor, an actor, singer, dancer. I was a dancer, singer, actor, right? I was first a dancer, then a singer, and then actress lastly. But I was never exceptional at any of those things. But I believe I had the skills, I had the training, and I worked very hard. I was very dedicated. The directors and the choreographers knew they could count on me. I was always on time. I always showed up in the best energy possible. I always went above and beyond. I stayed after for whatever extra practice there was needed. I never complained. And I believe these are the reasons I always had a job, right? I was always employed as a performer, not so much just my skill. Of course, we have to be prepared. We have to be skilled. We have to do the work. But in the end, the thing that brings the success and the level of success that we want is that dedication and discipline and the understanding that we are never an expert unless we are prepared. So I always talk about, practice, 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 repeat, repeat, repeat. Do it again and again and again. When I talk about confidence, which is one of the things that I teach, you can't be confident in anything that you don't feel prepared for. So you have to prepare, you have to do the work, and that's what brings the confidence, and that's what brings the success.
Yeah, and that's so beautiful. It's so impactful as well, because one thing that I love to explore in the lines of dedications is a beautiful quote from the Art of War, which is, I don't fear the man that does 1,000 things once, I fear the man that does one thing 1,000 times. And when you have that mentality, surely you're unstoppable, because geniuses, as much as we like to say that they're born, which some are, but the vast majority are actually built through their lifetimes, and that genius emerged from just the sheer dedication, the sweat, the blood, the tears, perhaps, to make it happen. Now, for you specifically, and you started at such a young age as well, was that discipline perhaps emerging from the way your parent taught you, or how does that perhaps come to life as such a young age?
I love this question, Sam, because, when I started mentoring, I kind of had to backtrack and look at why my success. I didn't really understand it, because for me, it felt organic, because it was just the way I grew up, the things that I did. And people will often ask me, how come you're always so positive? And I'm like, it's just been my way of life. But I give my parents a lot of credit. And my mother was the mom that, if we woke up in the morning and didn't feel like going to school, you know how kids are. You make an excuse. Mom, I have a tummy ache, or Mom, I don't feel well. She was the mom that says, you know what? Why don't we go to school? And once you get there, if you still don't feel well, you can have the school nurse call me and I'll come get you. Right? But then as a child, by the time you get to school and you're with all your friends, you've forgotten that you had a tummy ache or you didn't feel like school, and you go about your day and you continue. I had the mom that was like, oh, you don't like peas. All right. I'm not going to make you eat peas, but I'm going to put one on your plate and you can only eat that one pea. Right. So that I remember that clearly, because that how, and now I love peas. Right. So she, one pea on my plate. The next time there were 2 peas, and then there were 3 peas, and then there was a teaspoon of peas, and then that I loved my peas, right? So my mom was very, very smart like that. It was the same with my dancing. There were many times that I wanted to quit, right? When things got hard, or I was really scared of my ballet teacher when I was young. She was very scary, to the point that my mom even said she could smell that anxious sweat on me when I left ballet class, right? And this is at age 6, 7 years old. But there was that discipline from the beginning. Hey, we committed to this. We're going to finish this. We're going to do what we said we were going to do. And so to answer your question, I would say, and my dad, he was instrumental too, but my mother was the one that really enforced the discipline in my home. And she did it very tactfully, very kindly, and with a lot of love. But I learned at a very young age, when I commit to something, I finish what I started.
Yes. That's so key. That's so key because it's a mentality that everybody, any high performer ought to have. And one thing that because what's so interesting about your story, and obviously you're still actually quite young to have all these accomplishments under your belt, but basically you, like I said, you were a performer for 2 decades. Then you went into the beauty industry, did very well there. Then went into fitness and wellness. I know that you have some experience as well with being a fitness coordinator with Visa, which we talk quite a bit. When I was visiting you in Denver, then Chief Systems. How can one embrace the victory factor in such ways that they continuously better themselves through this heart of improvements, but also leverage quite their flexibility to understand that what I actually do, who I am, will always continue to involve in quite I wouldn't say linear fashion, but at least somewhat of an understanding in a logical sense. But your scope of work might be changing a lot, just like you did. How do you stay so flexible and so confident about your ability to not only be able to perform one thing quite well, but now 5, 6, 7 things in the duration of your career?
Sam, that is something that wasn't always easy. When I stepped off stage, which essentially was my whole life, I was around 35, 36 when I kind of retired from performance, and I had an identity crisis because that's all I didn't think of myself. I always said dancing isn't something I do, it's who I am, right? I identified as that performer, as that person. And so it was initially a struggle, but I think we all need to remember, and this is why I love when I talk to new people and I do discovery calls, is to learn about their past and how they came to do what they're doing now, because everybody has had a very colorful journey and we all are multidimensional. None of us have only one interest. None of us is only one kind of person. None of us is only authentic when we're wearing our sweatpants and not when we're in our black cocktail dress, right? All of us have all these different sides to ourselves. And I think it's very important for us to remember to explore all of it and to really ask ourselves the question, okay, so this is what I am doing right now, but what other things might I be interested in? What piques my interest? What is it that, and for me, everything was kind of organic because, the performance industry in itself is kind of fitness and it is beauty and it is all the other things that I ended up doing. But I did have to kind of step out of those performer shoes and go, okay, so what else am I passionate about? What else am I good at? Right? And for me, fitness was a very natural progression coming from being a dancer my whole life. Plus, my dad was a bodybuilder, so I kind of grew up in the gym environment as well. So for me, that was a very natural progression. As a dancer, Pilates was something we did as dancers. Yoga was something we did as dancers. So my first certifications were Pilates and yoga, right? And then that moved into kettlebells and personal training and all the other things. The beauty industry thing, that's also just something I explored as a child, with friends. We do each other's hair and do each other's makeup and all the things. So I learned very early on, I love doing my friends' nails and makeup and whatever. These are things that I enjoy. So how can we look back at our childhood and look at the ways that we played with friends? Because those are really the things that make us who we are. And quite often the things that cultivate our passions. And I think as we get busy in life, we get married, we have children, we get a job, or we create a business, and we get onto that hamster wheel and we run against time. We forget to slow down and just take a little time to remember who we are and what we have to share with the world. So that's kind of I don't know. I went on kind of a goose chase there, but that's how I feel about the evolution and just being open-minded when we get to those roadblocks where I was like, okay, what do I do now? I've literally, Sam, I have reached higher and further than my biggest dream. I'm from a tiny little town in South Africa where nobody performs around the world. It's not something that's done out there. So what I've reached and achieved as a performer in the performance industry was way beyond anything I could have ever imagined. And then you look at it and I'm like, I'm 35. I've reached all my dreams. Now what? Right? So it's important to ask yourself that question. Now what? What next? What other dreams do I have?
Beautiful. Beautiful. And you touch on a very strong emotion, which is fear. You said, you know what, Sam? Yes, I did very well, and I was able to embrace flexibility and changing industry and still doing well and so on. But the fear of being seen, the fear of being heard is something that a lot of people come back with. And I'd love if we can dive a little bit more about some of your approach to helping your clients to conquer their fear, because we live in a world where visibility and promotion are not just some add-on. It's absolutely critical. If you're not out there, the likelihood of you being able to succeed to perhaps your dream vision will be excessively difficult. Can you tell us more about how do you approach your own life lesson into perhaps incubating it in such ways that you can help other overcoming these fears?
Absolutely, Sam. Look, we all know the fear of speaking, right? The fear of getting up on stage or in front of a large group of people is the most significant fear in the world. People are more fearful of that than dying. This statistic always was very interesting to me. I'm like, okay, all right, that's significant. I understand it. And an interesting story is that, I performed my whole life. I grew up on stage. I'm happy on stage. But the first time I had to get up on stage and speak, I was terrified, right? Because, yes, as a performer, I had a choreographer and a director and a script. I got to learn all the things. People showed me where I had to go, what I had to wear, what I had to do. Everything was step by step rehearsed over and over and over. And then you step on a stage and you just need to speak to people and be vulnerable and be yourself. You don't get to act or, do someone else's choreography. You just got to be yourself. And that is what the fear is about. The fear is about, what if people don't accept me for who I am? The fear is about, what if they don't like what I have to tell them? What is it if they don't like what I have to share? Here is how I help my clients with this. Well, there's multi-layers to this. Obviously, we can talk about this for 40 hours, but to just kind of bring it together and bring it home. Number one, the first thing I had to get past and get over, and I know a lot of people struggle with this, I was a people pleaser, right? I wanted to be that person that everybody loves, everybody likes. I do everything for everyone. I be everything for everybody. You can't, okay? So the first thing you need to accept is, hey, I'm going to attract my people, my tribe. And that is okay if someone feels like they don't fit into my tribe or who I am. And if they're not 100% enamored with what I have to share, you know what? It's okay. They're on their own path. I'm on my path. And now this is easier said than done, right? But once you come to that realization, it is very empowering and very liberating. When I realized, you know what, Vanessa, not everybody needs to like you. Not everybody needs to love you. But if you are being your real self, you're going to attract those people that you resonate with, that you love being around, and that you love doing business with, right? And those who don't resonate, they're just not your people. They'll go and find their people and their tribe, and they'll be okay over there. And all of that is okay. So that is one of the very important things that I love to share with my clients, that it's okay not to be everything to everybody. Actually, it's better, because being everybody to everybody is exhausting, and it's impossible. Plus, my story, I lost my identity completely through doing that. You lose who you are. You get to a point where you're like, I don't really know who I am or what I stand for, because I've been trying to be so many things to so many different people. All right. So that's my first lesson, is stand in your power, get to know who you are, what you stand for, and then you don't even have to worry about who you end up with, because the people are going to be attracted to you will be the people that resonate with you and with that energy. And then, as you know, Sam, I talk a lot about posture and body language, the way you carry yourself. And the reason for that is, so often, even when I was a lot younger and I was dancing and I was performing, I would be walking in the street and people that I don't know would stop me in the street and say, oh my gosh, you have such a good energy about you. Or you look so fabulous today. What did you do? Really, all that was my dancer posture. I was used to being aligned, upright, and, breathing fully into my lungs. And then when we are not aware of that, we tend to carry a low power posture. And I always say posture is a universal language for confidence. So regardless whether you are feeling confident, if you carry yourself in a confident way, people will perceive you as confident, and that in itself will improve your self-confidence, if that makes any sense. So it's like a snowball effect. If you just become really aware of how you carry yourself, and if you do it with intention, the way people respond to you is going to be empowering. And that response that you get from the energy you put out by simply aligning your body properly and standing up tall, you are going to feel an improvement in your self-image and self-confidence, because you're putting out that energy, you're going to get it back, and it's going to help you grow the way you feel about yourself.
Absolutely. Our good friend Otis Megager actually told me, Sam, the best way to spot a leader is, do they have a commanding presence? Do they have when you walk into the room, does they look like they belong in that room? Maybe internally things are shaking, the confidence is going down, you see all these very successful people, but that does matter, obviously. But the commanding presence, to make sure that other people understand that not only you belong in that room, but you can own it and you can be a leader in it, is so important. And what you just said actually remind me of a quote by Christina Grimmie, if I'm not mistaken, which is, confidence, it's not they will like me. Confidence is I'll be fine if they don't. And that's a very, very powerful mindset switch. And I think one way you were able to master this was through public speaking. And you do a lot of public speaking. You're actually quite a seasoned international speaker yourself. And you're also the owner of a very interesting program called Speak Up and Level Up. When you're thinking about just, first of all, let's begin with this. For anyone trying to be a public speaker themselves, what are some of your best practice tips or steps in which they can overcome themselves to perhaps take over the world?
Yes. Sam, I have a lot of practical tools and tips that I share with my clients with regards to how to burn off that extra adrenaline before you go on stage. Those are the physical things that happen when you're nervous, and that makes it hard to perform at the level that you need to perform at. But again, coming back to what I said earlier, your number one friend as a speaker is preparation. I think a lot of people think they can just... And part of the reason they're so nervous is because they're not really prepared to the level that they should be prepared, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean having your speech written out word for word and knowing it word for word, because actually we don't really want that. We don't really want you to know your speech word for word, because you don't want to sound like an actor or like a robot, right? You want to be able to step up there, but you really need to be clear. I always find if I'm very clear on my opening, I do know my story almost word for word, because that's how I start. Those first 2 minutes on stage are the hardest. That's when you feel the most nervous. So if you really, really know your introduction and you know your transitions from, introduction to story, to content, to closing, to offer, or whatever, however that's kind of the standard speaker structure, right? If you understand the structure and you know your stuff, if you know your content inside out, you know that without a script or reading something, you can talk for 30 minutes about your thing, then you are prepared, right? If you understand. So that's why, I always say to my speakers, never rely on a PowerPoint, because Sam, how often there's AV problems, the screen isn't working, there's problems. So practice, right? Go in front of the mirror, do your whole thing, time yourself, make sure that your content fits into a certain time, and then be very clear about why you are sharing what you're sharing. Are you sharing it because you have an offer at the end that connects with what you have? Are you sharing because you want to empower? Are you sharing because you want to entertain? Are you sharing because you want to educate? What are the reasons? And make sure that your message is congruent with your reason for sharing your message. So, it's all about that preparation. So make sure you're clear on why you're sharing and what you're sharing. Then make sure you have good practice, and you don't have to necessarily practice in front of an audience. Me, I find my phone is my best friend. I put it on a tripod. I get up. I do. You have to do it out loud. A lot of people think they can practice their speeches in their head. Don't even go there, because even though it is a helpful tool, as an additional tool, because, our brains are very smart. If we go over things in our minds, that's great. But if you've never vocalized it, you're going to derail yourself. You need to stand up and do your talk. Do it in front of the mirror. Do it in front of the camera. Do it in front of a couple of friends. Do it to the dog, whatever. But you got to do it a few times before you step up on stage and deliver. Because only then will you feel confident in what you have to offer. And that will dilute a lot of those nerves for you.
I was talking to one of my good friends, Mr. Dr. Michael Gerhertz, and he's one of my favorite communication specialists. And he said, a lot of people confound basically what authenticity is. Authenticity is not how authentic I think I am, it's how authentic the audience think you are. So this is kind of like this debunking this justification of, well, I don't want you over prepare. Well, that's fine. You want to be authentic, but not preparing actually won't give you the result that you may expect. And that's a very, very key portions of any preparations. Now, speaking is something quite in vogue as we're talking about. More and more people are getting into this business because, let's be honest, there's great money into it, but there's also significant impact. When you're thinking about your ways in which you can basically use speaking as an ROI channel, as an income stream, basically, and how can that make your business not only more successful, but perhaps also way more credible? Tell us more about the importance of doing such things for leaders in these days.
Yes. Number one, speaking is the biggest converter to your revenue, right? Because, Sam, we always talk about having to have, now it used to be 8 touches, now it's like 12 to 15 touches or whatever you have to have for people to really engage in your service and invest, right? Now, there's different ways to create those touches. There's posting on social media, sending out email campaigns, right? There's all the things we know of. There's guesting on podcasts. This is a huge way. This is also speaking, you guys. Those of you who think speaking is only getting up on stage. No, being a podcast guest or a podcast host is one of the best ways, and Sam, I'm sure you will agree, seeing as you've been doing this for a while, to convert your prospects into clients. Why? Because they're getting a real sense for who you are. They get to see you, in real person, or hear your voice in real person. And they already kind of get a sense of, hey, I feel like I know Sam. I've been listening to him. I've seen him up there on stage. I've heard him on his podcast. I feel like I can trust him. It's way more valuable to be able to touch all the senses rather than just a Facebook post or a LinkedIn, message or a DM, right? Even voice messages are fantastic. But when you get up on a stage, whether it's virtual or live, you are establishing yourself immediately as an expert in your field. Because let's face it, not everybody feels comfortable. We were just talking about the fear of speaking. So people feel like if you have the courage and the know-how to get in front of people, be vulnerable, be yourself, and share the best of what you have, they already have you have a huge jump ahead in the trust factor. People already start feeling like they can trust you because they feel like they know you. They feel like they've had interaction with you, even if they might not have had a one-on-one conversation with you. But they feel like they've had that real live interaction with you. So very, very powerful. There's very few other methods. Actually, I don't know that there is any other method that's quite as powerful as showing up in person and speaking and sharing who you are, because that's essentially what you're doing. You're sharing and being vulnerable with who you all are with those people, and they already feel like they can know, like, and trust you.
I call it gaining passive trust, right? Like you said, you don't need to directly talk to them if they see you very often. And obviously we are in the world of marketing and business developments. Depending on your niche, it can go upwards of 22 touch points before somebody even basically contemplates reaching out to seek your services. Now think about that. That's a lot of touch points. That's many, many, many touch points in a world where more and more people are seeking such touch points. So making sure that you are in front of rooms, not only validate that you have at least someone to say that was validated by the venue, which is great, again, passive trust, and then also by them seeing it, understanding and emerging themselves towards, well, wow, Sam is very inspiring. Vanessa, when she go up on stage talking about confidence and what it is to be successful, I feel empowered by that. I love to feel the way that perhaps she does, or get closer to that level. Now, when you're thinking about a mentor, and you call yourself a mentor, which I love. We've been seeing a lot of people, experts, gurus, coaches as well, which even consultant now is picking up some steam since the pandemic. When you're thinking about what it is to be a mentor, tell me about the way you distinguish a mentor from a coach or consultant. What's so special about, and what perhaps you call yourself a mentor instead of the other terminology?
There's no certification out there to be a mentor, right? A mentor is someone who has life experience, someone who has been there, done that. Someone who has walked the path, had the experiences, and now can share perspectives that come from having the experiences, right? Whereas there's lots of coaching programs out there with roadmaps on how you coach people on this and how you coach people on that. I always say, as a mentor, I'm a student. I'm a student of my clients. Every group that I speak to, every person that I work with one-on-one, I learn something new. And we are on a path together. I don't pretend to know all the answers. But because of my experience and my time in this world with the people that I've shared it with, I can share my unique perspectives and help my client figure it out. So I'm here to guide them and mentor them based on my experience. And then we take their experience, we bring my experience and their experience together, and we work side by side to find the solutions. And that's how I see a mentor. It's not a process that's mapped out step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. It's about honestly, number 1, being a mentor is about being a really good listener and really being able to figure out where the real problem is, because sometimes we think a problem is a problem, but there's something underlying that's creating that problem, right? So it's about digging deep, finding the real underlying issues, and then working together to find the solution. It's not about me knowing it all and telling you what to do. It's about us as a team. Hey, how are we going to solve this thing, whatever it may be? Well, that's my perspective on that question.
Yeah. When you're thinking about your life, you mentioned your mother as a huge source of inspiration. And when you're thinking about your own mentors, direct or indirect mentors in your life, can you share some of those, and maybe not by name, but just the understanding of where you were able to find them, and perhaps what's the easiest way to find the right mentor for you? I think that's what a lot of people are asking themselves. There's all these opportunities, but how do I pick one in meaningful fashions? Tell us more about your experience being on the other side of the experience, being a mentee to some of these mentors.
Sam, I've been very lucky. You mentioned my mom. I would say my mother is probably my biggest mentor. She's a very, very grounded, strong, logical thinker, very open-minded. Aside from being my mother, she's always my best friend, just someone I felt I could go to with anything and everything. And I think that stems from her never judging, right? And I think what we are looking for in mentors are people who don't judge us, but can put themselves in our shoes, and by doing so, help us navigate the difficulties of life. We all have difficulties. And again, we all have mentors. And I've been very fortunate that a lot of my mentors was kind of built into my life. I didn't necessarily have to go look for them. But here's something I will say. When I did go out looking for a mentor a few years ago, I recognized, about 5 years ago now, I recognized my lack of ability or even my willingness to want to market and sell, right? Because I'm a performer, I'm a fitness instructor, I'm a beautician. I love helping people. I love making them feel good. I love helping them out of pain, lose weight, whatever it may be, right? I loved performing because I loved lifting people's spirits and taking them out of their everyday world and bringing them into a fantasy world. So I'm all that, right? I'm a little airy-fairy about all of that stuff. But as a business owner, marketing and selling is imperative. You have to. As an entrepreneur, you cannot grow a business if you're not willing to market and sell. So I remember saying to my mom, and this is where the seed was planted, I said to her, Mom, if I wanted to market and sell, I would have gone to school for that. I didn't go to college to learn how to market and sell. Why do I have to market and sell? My mom, the wisdom that she has, she's a saleswoman. She loves sales. She runs her own business. She's an entrepreneur. She looked at me and she said, well, Vanessa, what do you think you were doing all those years, going from audition to audition to audition? And I had a light bulb moment. I was like, oh my goodness, I have been marketing and selling all along. I happen to be my own product, right? But what I did was I went and I looked, what are the mentors out there who work with entrepreneurs and business owners on marketing and selling? Who can help me? I auditioned or interviewed 7 coaches before I chose one. Right? I had a conversation, over an hour conversation with almost each and every one of them. And at the end of that, I knew who was the person that had to help me. So what I'm saying is, don't just go for the first and best option that you see. Think of yourself as that CEO, as that owner of your life. And you are looking for the right candidate for that job. And that job is for them to help you with whatever it is that's in front of you that seems like an obstacle. But do your research. Talk to people. See who it is that you resonate with and who makes you feel like you can learn from them and that they are a good energy in your life and that they're the right fit for you. You can. You have to stand in your power and you have to take ownership of that. Don't be the victim ever. Be the one that decides that path for yourself. And then other times, as you know, Sam, in the circles that we move, we meet people and we talk to some unbelievable human beings. Find someone that you really want to learn from, ask them. They might just say yes. Ask them, say, hey, you know what? I really admire this or that about you. I really would love to learn more from you about that. What would that look like? Is it something you would consider? Don't be scared to ask.
Don't be scared to ask. And one of the many things that I love, and you being a mentor obviously makes a lot of sense with what you're doing with Achieve System, is when you're thinking about what it is to inspire confidence in the next generation of entrepreneurs, which is a lot of what you guys are doing. For example, myself and a lot of the people that resembles me and have the claims of hopes and the ambitions of changing the world and so on. I love what Eleanor Roosevelt had to say on this, which is the future belongs to those who believes in the beauty of their dreams. When you're thinking about your visions, in perhaps, because I think you can do this for decades and decades, and even past perhaps your life in a tangible world, I think some of your lessons will still be resonating with a lot of people. What do you hope young entrepreneurs can embrace and perhaps you to be more confident and therefore more impactful in their lane of work?
In spite of fear, do it anyway. Look, what's the worst thing that can happen? I think a lot of us are being held back. And believe me, I think I could have achieved way more if I was younger, when I recognized that fear it's a figment of our imagination. It's us imagining things that haven't even happened yet and might most likely not happen at all. But we create scenarios in our minds that withholds us from taking the opportunities that are right in front of us. So I would say, try to see fear as a playful challenge, right? Turn it into a game. Turn it into something that is a personal challenge and challenge yourself to, in spite of the fear you feel moving forward, just do it anyway, because what is the worst thing that can happen? You fail. And you know what? Failure is a great thing, because all failure is another lesson. And when you learn each lesson, as you learn, you grow. And with growth comes more opportunity. And believe me, the opportunities become bigger and bigger, and they're always scary. The fear continues. So my number one tip for any young entrepreneur, it doesn't really matter if you're not an entrepreneur, whatever it is that you want to do in your life, if there's fear, know there's opportunity for growth. Don't let fear stop you. See it as a learning experience. Failure isn't failure until you quit. So keep at it, keep pushing forward, assess and reassess, adjust and readjust. And that is how you create confidence and success. It's by pushing through the fear, learning from every failure, and every failure turns into a greater success and a greater challenge. And that is how we grow.
Yes. It's one of my first coach. I played very high level soccer for a few years. And what my first coach said was, Sam, you want to understand that you either you fail and you learn, or you win and you celebrate. This it's all a matter of perspective. Failure is definitely not the conclusions. And actually, when you take a look at any people that had any importance in any point in time, they failed way more than they succeeded. We remember them for their success because that's how life is. But and for example, I love what Jordan had to say on this. I don't recall the exact numbers, but he was sharing basically the amount of shots he missed compared to the one that he actually made. And he actually missed more shot than the one that he made, but he's still the greatest basketball player of all time. Maybe with LeBron James, whatever your preference is, he's definitely up there. And but the point is, that's the objective of any high performer, is the objective that, hey, let's try. Let's adjust, relaunch if it's necessary. Let's fail and fail and fail and fail over and over until we succeed. And I think that's what the purpose of being an entrepreneur is, which is being an innovator, having the guts to actually put yourself out there to solve a problem worth solving, is very much rooted in the essence of not only the discipline for you to get there, but also the resilience to fail, start again, and become better.
I couldn't have said it better, Sam. That was very, very eloquently said. And, you have to take the shots to make the shots.
Exactly.
If you don't take the shots, there's no shot to be made.
100%. You miss 100% of the shot you don't take. That's for sure. That's certainty right there. Is you won't score if you don't shot. That's certain. I want you to quickly glimpse at your role now, with your current role. We've been at very extensively about your story and everything you're doing and how you became the person you are. Now you title yourself as the CEO of Achieve Systems. Perhaps, what does it feel to basically being entitled to such a obviously very important role inside of Achieve? But tell me a bit more about perhaps what are some of your most impactful responsibilities that you're currently holding to impact entrepreneurs and nudge their business forward.
That comes back to being a mentor. I'm really humbled and I'm very honored to be in this position, because I recognize that I hold a lot of people's lives kind of in my hands, right? I'm here to support and to help grow, not through just one skill. Sometimes it's as simple as just helping someone with something very simple, or being the middleman when because there's always going to be conflict in any situation, right? A lot of us fear conflict, right? And that's really also something that I had to work through. I was never very good with conflict, but conflict is also one of those things that is a growth experience. So whether I'm a gateway or a moderator between two businesses or two people that are having some kind of challenge, or whether I'm there to support someone in the simplest task, or whether they say to me, hey, I want to work with you for 6 months because I want to learn more about how to stand out in my business. There's so many different levels at which I'm engaging with this beautiful community. And for me, that is really an honor. And like I told you, every day to me is still a learning experience. I feel like I learn every day as I come across these things, across the humps and all the things that happen. As entrepreneurs, Sam, there's always something, right? There's always something we have to deal with. There's always some kind of challenge. But if we can continue to do that with joy and with passion, then it never feels like work, because it's just part of our life and who we are. And I could have never, ever imagined if you told me 20 years ago that I would be sitting here doing what I'm doing now. I would have told you you're probably crazy. But I think it is about embracing life and the opportunities. All this has kind of happened organically for me, but I believe it happened that way because of my attitude towards life. And my attitude towards life is just live every day to the fullest, be open to opportunities, and say yes when opportunities come your way. And even if you don't think you can do it, figure it out along the way. And so I don't know if that directly answers your question, but my role is really, people always say I'm like the glue that holds it all together. I'm kind of that middleman, the bridge between the leadership team. So we have a beautiful leadership team of 20 at the moment who I'm kind of here to navigate and help support our leaders. Our leaders support the community. And then, of course, I'm also part of the executive team, which is Mike, Phyllis, myself, and Rob. And the four of us, we manage operations and growth and new systems and new processes. And so there's many layers. And I can just say to everyone, you're all capable of doing this. Just be open and willing and dedicated.
Beautiful. Miss Vanessa Raymond, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Do you like to share any last thoughts with our audience, please?
Wow, I shared so many thoughts. You brought out so many amazing things. You are an amazing host, Sam. Thank you so much for the insightful questions. It's wonderful as a guest to have a host who asks the right questions and know how to tap into your knowledge. So I really appreciate that from you. What I'll say to your audience is, again, embrace life, embrace opportunities. Don't let fear stop you. And my little tagline for my confidence program is act it, feel it, be it. Here's the thing. We all suffer from imposter syndrome. We all have times in life when we doubt ourselves. It's not a bad thing to just step into that vision of your future self. Have a vision for yourself. And when you're feeling the fear, when you're feeling the doubt, remind yourself, where is it I'm going? Why am I going there? And step back into that. So even if you have to act it for a little bit, if you act it, you can start feeling it. And when you feel it, that's when you can internalize it and be it, because you won't recognize any of these strengths and attributes that you have if you didn't already have them inside you. So keep your vision on the things that you admire in the world and in others, because those are in you, because you're recognizing them, and adopt them, embrace them, and step into your power. Be yourself.
Thank you for spending your time with us today on the Meaningful Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review or share it with someone who could benefit from it. And always remember, your story matters. Make it meaningful. We hope to see you next time.